something we all need. Gotta have it now if you wanna succeed. Striving, surviving, that's no doubt. Sticking together, we gon' find a way out. To all you young people, give it your all. To all you young people, give it your all. To all you young people, give it your all. To all you young people, give it your all.
Good evening, the back community. Thank you as always for staying involved. Thank you for staying engaged. Tonight we're going to talk politics, as I like to say it, politics as usual. Tonight's guest that we have on the back community is Miss Kayla Mumtaz. First things first, I want to say, Kayla, I know you got an audience out there. People have been liking and waiting for this interview. Thank you for affording us your time this evening, and I can't wait to dive into your story tonight.
Yes, thank you for having me. And like I've said before, I'm very shocked at everyone's support, but I'm here.
All right, let me see. I've gotten a chance to watch a little bit about you once I started following you on social media, but I'm sure I'm going to get a chance to know you in great detail by the time you leave today. But my first question I always like to hit everybody with is the opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the back community. Some people who are going to be watching this, I'm sure, or listening in, I'm sure they know you, others don't. But Kayla, here's an opportunity to tell the back community more about you. So what kind of work do you do? And let us start right there.
All right. So right now I work for the Senate Majority Leader, Andrea Stork-Cousins. And just as a disclaimer, my voice is hoarse because I'm getting over being sick.
I don't know. You sure you don't sound like this normally?
No. But yeah, so I'm Director of Correspondence for Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stork-Cousins. I am a recent graduate. I graduated in May. So this is, getting my bachelor's degree and going straight into it. And with someone with her ranking has been quite the experience. I got involved in politics, I want to say 2018. And really kind of jump started with George Floyd, and race and politics has been my number one passion. So this is not it. This is my stepping stone to where I plan to go.
Okay. Listen, what sounds like you have big plans in the future, in the workings for yourself. One is interesting that you said how George Floyd's death was a catalyst for you in some ways. I think I share the same thing. Doing this podcast came as a direct result of everything that the world was experiencing after George Floyd's death. And here I am, I'm listening to a song by J. Cole called Snow on the Bluff. And he's going back and forth with some woman in Chicago who's saying all of the people who have money and influence aren't doing enough to highlight what's going on. And I'm driving back from Costco and I'm like, man, I felt like it was resonating with me. I don't have what they have, but it still hit me.
Right.
So I said, well, what is it that I can do? And I thought about the fact that I know how powerful people's stories can be. I know how impactful it can be to just hear how somebody else navigated out their situations. And it was just like, we got a lot more positive people in the Capital District area as a whole than we highlight. So I was just like, well, you know what? That can be my small window of giving back. And that's how I got it. So, but what was it about George Floyd's situation that was the catalyst for you in politics or getting involved in activism?
Well, I was already in school prior to that happening. So my original goal was to become a civil rights lawyer. And then, so I enrolled in political science. I started Hudson Valley, very small steps, but I think the biggest thing was really the dynamic. I mean, a mixture of George Floyd and our Trump era that we're still living in, unfortunately. But I have 3 children and they're obviously mixed. I myself am mixed, and I was raised by a primarily conservative and very Caucasian family. And I think seeing that dynamic and the damages that it was doing in my own life on a micro scale, and just thinking of what that looks like on the macro. I think that really, I mean, I remember going to I went to the Albany protest as well as the Troy, and if anyone from the Capital Region knows, I mean, there was thousands and it was a historic time, unfortunately. But I brought my son with me, and seeing, he was, I think, 6 at the time. And for it to resonate in him, I just felt like, it was just became more clearer to me, and what I wanted to do. So that kind of changed from civil rights advocate or civil rights lawyer to actual, advocacy, and really trying to be on the front lines of things. I just don't ever want to be in that situation. Unfortunately, I would never have that control. Those people that are in those situations, they didn't choose to be in that situation. Yeah. So I want to make it my mission to try my hardest to be able to prevent those situations from happening. So.
Okay. Yeah. And it's, what is it? Turning negatives into positives, right? Obviously, like you said, no one decided to be in those positions, but that was the situations, or that has been the situations, time and time again for a lot of individuals. Yeah, okay. Like I said, I always like to try to get an understanding of, what drove you to the area and what you're doing, like how'd you get started, stuff like that. But I think that, like I said, that scenario alone, just that one scenario, is definitely a big enough catalyst for a lot of us. And I think my last guest might have said the same thing. He might have said that. Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not just that. I'm Black. I was, that's really the catalyst. I was born and raised. I mean, like I said, I was raised by white people, but I was different than those white people. And that was a reminder every single day of my life. So that was really the real reason behind everything. I feel every time I read a headline that something happens, I feel it like it was me, like it was my family. And I would fight for my kids. I would fight for my father. I would fight, for my family. And I think the same goes as fighting for that cause. Like, it's just, it's in my bones.
I love it. And you're making me a smile internally, because, I think race relations is one of the things that we don't explore, we don't talk about enough, but it's something that affects us greatly. And everyone's got their own opinions. I know some people who are going to watch this probably say, whatever, Tyrell, but I always say, in my family, right, in my direct circle of family and friends, I have white friends, Arab friends, Spanish friends, Black friends, and not just the ones that, you write to on Facebook. I mean, like, intimately in my life. And I think one of the guys who I had 2 people who wrote a foreword on my book. One of them is George Benson, older white man who used to be my math teacher at Albany High School. Him and his family have been hugely instrumental in my life. And I always credit my teachers for exposing me to the importance of race relations. It was a lot different than what I grew up thinking that it was going to be like. It was like, listen, you stay over there, I stay over here, this is what it is. But, to be able to see people who didn't necessarily look exactly like me, but cared exactly like me, changed everything for me. Right. And it's just like, the world is a lot bigger than just color. I think it goes to the compassion of a person's heart. So I always say I look at the content of a person's character. And some people like, really? Like, listen, I'm telling you, that's how I'm built. That's what it is.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, let me see. Are there any types of passion projects you're working on or things that you would like to get in outside of politics? Don't worry, I'm coming back into politics right after this, but I always like to see what else is it that you're passionate about? You have those big aspirations that you mentioned earlier. So let us know some passion projects you're working on.
I would say passion. That's interesting. I feel like I'm the type of person that will put my hand in something. If I'm good at it, I'll go. And I don't know if I would say passion. I will say that you mentioned, that you would like to get into. I just recently started volunteering for, I volunteer for an outreach van, St. Joseph's or Joseph's House. And I don't know if you're familiar with the outreach van, but basically, we drive around the city of Albany and we give out certain needs to homeless people. I didn't realize how prevalent homelessness is in Albany County. I mean, I didn't even touch any other county in the Capital District. So I'm really brainstorming right now. So if anyone has any ideas, shoot me an idea of something to do for that community. But other than that, I mean, passion, I have more hobbies than passion. I paint sometimes. I got a new piano that I'll be doing lessons soon. So,
Nice.
nothing crazy. And also in my line of work, it's busy. It's session starting in January and I'll be there 24/7.
Listen, speaking of which, like I said, politics as usual, being part of the Democratic Party, seeing the fact that, I know going into midterms, everyone had the fears of the red wave and, how much it was going to change everything. But from you and your political viewpoint, how do you think Democrats favored in this midterms?
I share that same fear. I will say I was definitely worried. But also I feel like Democrats have a real problem on their hands this year. Crime is just, it's huge in political talk. Like that's all anyone is talking about. When I get phone calls, it's crime. Now, as to how to approach crime is a whole nother story. But I think it really highlighted the fact that New Yorkers, they do want a change. And I mean, you have these lifelong Democrats that are leaning away from that. And then you have Republicans who are just like, trying to grab anything that they could possibly get at this point. But I don't know, I think it really highlighted, for one, Hochul really needs to buckle down before next midterm. It's an interesting time. And like I said, I think the biggest issues right now are literally crime. You ask anyone why they're voting, that's like which it sucks because a lot of people, all you ever hear about is bail reform. Bail. And I have my opinions about bail reform. I don't think that bail reform is the reason for our crime. Like it's simply not. There are a lot of underlying, and I think people in our community know this already. We know the reasons why crime are happening, but they're not being addressed. And
it's not bail reform.
It's not bail reform, right? Say it louder for the people in the back. It's not. It's so much more than that. And I think people really need to, I think the politicians in general, people that are in charge, need to stop trying to find ways around the harder things. And I mean, I get it, money, it seems like we got a whole lot of money, but we don't have all of this money that, you got to take some to give it here. And, and unfortunately they're not right now. They need to figure out how to get those things done.
Okay. Yeah. And it's never a one size fits all type of solution, right? It's it's multifaceted, it's layered, right? You know, you mentioned earlier, you talked about homelessness, right? So how does homelessness affect crime, right? If crime is a really big hot topic, right? And I'm sure it is, you know, crime leads to all types of things. Number one on my list always is safety. You know what I mean? So, and it's just like, okay, well, there's so many different variables that's going on coming out of the pandemic, or even during a pandemic, you know, just realizing how crime has spiked in a lot of different areas. I think I had the mayor on, might have been in December, so almost a year ago, something like that. And we were just talking about the data at that particular point in time. So, you know, it's a very important topic, and it's actually one that I'm okay with them. I'm okay with that topic being the center, and like that's on people's minds, that's on your hearts, that's on the agenda. We need something done about that, as opposed to some of the other things that have been on a chopping block. So, you know,
yeah, definitely. And also, I mean, it's getting, like you said, I would rather crime kind of be the hot topic, just because in talking about that, and if you're serious about trying to get to the bottom of that, all these other problems, like you said, multifaceted, can be, I don't want to say solved, because they'll never be solved, but definitely alleviated and helped. And you can't fix crime until you fix all this other stuff.
Agree. Let me see. And did you grow up in the Capital District? If so, what part of the Capital District did you grow up in, Kayla?
I did. I was born and raised in Troy. But I don't want to say raised in Troy. I honestly, a lot of times I answer that question with I am from the Capital District, because growing up, my childhood, I moved everywhere. So I lived everywhere except for Schenectady. Okay. And that was it. Yeah.
Okay. Shout out to my man, David over there, who is all things Troy. David, I can never say Reale. I always say his last name wrong. But shout out to my man D over there in Troy, who's Mr. Troy, New York himself.
I follow David. He doesn't probably know who I am, but he is an inspiration to me. I'm like, I've lived in Troy. I've never seen this dude everywhere. Never seen him.
Listen. When I make it, he's going to be the person who dresses me.
Yes.
Sometimes we have talks about fashion and music offline.
Right.
And he has his ear to fashion and music.
Yes.
So. Yeah. But growing up in the Capital District area, like you said, you've been everywhere besides Troy. What kind of programs were you involved in as a youth? And are some of those programs still around?
As a child, what programs? Honestly, you know, as I said, I moved around a lot. So unfortunately, my childhood wasn't as stable. So if I was in a program, it would have been not very long. So, I mean, growing up, the only thing stable really was church, for me. I went to Bible camp. I went to Wednesday youth nights, like, you know, those types of things. But other than that, I can't say I was really into groups. I think my groups really catapulted in college is when I had that stable footing and like, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. Let's run with it.
Nice. Well, that and I think you and I have said this offline too. The greatest book ever that you can always read is the Bible. And you know, I think for some, you know, they know what they can go to and find in the Bible, and then for others, you know, for a good period of our lives, we end up trying to live in spite of the Bible and the examples and teachings in it. But where I'm at now at this stage of life, I've realized that that's the greatest foundation any of us can have.
Amen to that.
Yeah, listen
for real.
It's the truth, and I really think that, you know, giving people healthy examples of what you can do and still be loved by God and still receive God's grace and still be a part of God's kingdom, right? I think it's huge because when I was younger, I used to think that, I had to be a certain type of way. I had to be a square. I couldn't do everything else that I wanted to do if I was going to be positive, if I was going to be of God. And that was so far from the truth, and it takes you to really block out all of the other noise that you get about, oh, you're churchy, or that's church folk, or they're hypocrites. It's like, I had to literally get to a place of learning how to block that out, to just learn how to study God's word. And it was so beneficial. So even though you didn't have a lot of stability, you had a foundation in God, which is the greatest foundation for me that any one of us can have.
Right. Yeah, I think I find it's interesting, when you say you can fall or you can, kind of live not as according to the Bible as people think you're supposed to, be. But I always find that it's when you're not doing that it's the strongest. So like for me, although my foundation was in that, I had this long period of my life where I was like, forget this. This is too much. This is too hard. And I think a lot of Christians experience that. And I think a lot of Christians that grew up the way that I grew up, and after reading your book, grew up the way that you grew up, they have that same thing. And then, something kind of happens and you're brought to your knees. And there's nothing else in between that after that.
Nothing.
And you realize like, all right, this is it. I get it. This is it.
And it's crazy because, most of us end up having to hit rock bottom or have some type of drastic situation that happens. And it's like, how can we make God cool? And it's not to say that he's not, because depending on what crowd you're in, he is, right? But how can you make that just as cool as pop culture, right?
Yeah.
And realizing that it's going to do way more for you than this particular song by this particular album. By this particular artist. But I just think that the substance of who we are and what we need to navigate and get through this world is more spiritually rooted than it is outwardly.
Definitely.
But yeah.
Definitely agree. Yeah.
Let me see. And the reason why I asked the question about your programs is that, one of the things we end up talking about on the show is how the cities that we grew up in the Capital District, used to have so many resources. It used to be a program, a Boys and Girls Club, some type of community rec center, almost in every part of the city, right? And it's just like, so sometimes I'll ask, or I can ask, like I said, I'll ask every guest on the show, what do you think happened to the programming? And it was just like, because it's significant for a lot of us. So I can only imagine, you go back to crime, you go back to homelessness, when you don't have access to these particular types of programs, how does that show up in the communities that we live in?
So it's interesting. So see, when you ask me programs, I think of like, I am registered in this program. But no, I think now that you say it, every single city I grew up in, there was definitely a community center, and I would go and pay my, $3 if I wasn't a member to go swimming or play basketball. I stayed in Cohoes for a little while. Cohoes had one that actually, I was driving past with my husband not too long ago. We had met in Cohoes. And I was like, do they still have the community center? And it's now like a senior center. And then in Troy, I would go to the Boys and Girls Club after school. Not the one across from BMV, but the other one that's now something totally, it's been like 4 different things. It's on Canal. I don't remember where that was, but I went there for a little bit. That's also shut down. And yeah, it plays a huge role. And I don't know if we're allowed to, like, it pisses me off.
Yeah, you're good.
Like, it gets me mad because I'm like, like, for instance, I don't know if you've heard recently, like, and this is something small, I don't know if it really did too much for the community, but the funding for it did. Like, the fact that Washington Park lights are like expelled from Washington Park because neighbors are complaining that it's causing traffic, that blows my mind, because those same neighbors are the same ones who are going to be complaining about the youth in their neighborhood causing all this havoc, not realizing that these lights are fundraising POW. Like it's just, it's, yeah, I wish people cared. I wish people cared. And like you said earlier, you know, it's the people with money that aren't doing anything. And it really makes you wonder. And I think that's the part where I'm at now. It's like, I'm learning the power that I have, but what do I do with it? Because there's so much that could be done, but also you need money, you need dollars. And, you know, these people with the dollars, they don't, you know, they're worried about traffic.
Yeah, but you know, you said such a powerful statement where it's just like, you know, most people always equate power to money, right? But if you understand the power and influence, in a lot of ways, it can be just as impactful as if you had money, right? Because there's a lot of people that have money who don't know how or don't have influence, right?
Right.
But you know, finding your voice, finding not just for you in particular, for all of us, you know, finding our voice, finding the ways that we can advocate for it. Washington Park, the lights, that's been an ongoing thing that's been happening at a lot of the council meetings. I know because I speak to Councilman Johnson pretty regularly. And you know, so he'll tell me what was happening and what was going on, and it's just like, well, wow, out of all of the things that we can pick apart or pick on, we're gonna pick on that.
Right.
So,
right.
You know.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like I said, it's those same people that are, oh, you know, they need to get off the streets and do this. And it's like, what do these kids have? And a lot of these communities, they don't have, there's nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah. Yep. And listen, I'm saying it from personal experience. I know how important all of these programs were. You know, growing up in Arbor Hill, we had St. Joseph. There's an Arbor Hill Community Center. You know, there was boxing up on Quell Street. There was all types of things you can go to, even the neighborhood parks. You got the softball field. You had all of these different things, and with those things in abundance, we still found time to get in trouble. Right. So, but imagine if you don't have any of those things, it's just trouble. Right. And how those things trickle down, the trickle down effect to everything else. And, you know, a lot of our kids' lives end up getting ruined even before they have a chance to figure it out.
Right. Right. Yep.
Yeah. Let me
all
see.
in the spirit of having fun.
Yeah. And you just realize that some of that fun you don't come back from.
Nope.
Yeah. Let me see. Thinking of the younger Kayla, right? And this is going to be interesting, especially hearing earlier, you know, the family dynamics and how you moved around. But knowing what you know now as a mom, you know, as a professional, thinking back on your younger self, right? So to the younger Kayla, what is something you wish someone would have told you back then when you were still figuring it out that you know now, but you wish someone had imparted on you to help you when you were younger?
I would say to stop caring about what other people think. I think growing up for me, I was surrounded by people that were shoving their ideas down my throat, or telling me how I should have been, you know, where I should have went, what I should have been doing, all of that. And I feel like that really, a lot of times, and I feel like in society, we glorify the idea of, you know, I'm going to show everybody what they didn't think. Don't show anybody anything. Just show yourself that, because that's where you get tripped up and you start, you know, for me at least, it was always, I have to do this because they think I can't, or I have to do this because this is what they think I should be doing. And I think honestly, that would have been the one thing. I mean, just recently, probably this year to the last 2 years, I figured it out of like, I don't care what anybody else thinks, because either they don't believe in me or they do, but I need to do it their way, if that makes sense. And you slow yourself down, you limit yourself. You limit yourself to other people's beliefs and other people's ideas. When you are just worried about yourself, you allow yourself to, your imagination is endless. So your imagination is not somebody else's imagination. So I would say, honestly, stop caring about what other people think. And I think as children or even teenagers, we're not told that because we're always told to do something that the adults think we should be doing. So you're never really taught to think for yourself and to do things that you want to do and not what other people think that you should do. I mean, even in the school system, you should go to college, you should do this, you should do that. That really slowed me down in life, because then when I wasn't measuring up, I was slowing down because now I'm, spiraling in this rabbit hole of I'm not good enough or instead of just being kind to myself and doing what I wanted to do. So I would say definitely stop caring and giving a shit what people think.
I like it. And you realize that process itself, that explanation you just gave, it's not limited to just young adults. Because like you said, it's in the last year or two where you're actually just starting to feel like, okay, well, you know what? Let me stop caring. And for myself, I've learned that it wasn't until I want to say at some point during my marriage with my wife, I figured out that I have two love styles. One of them, I'm a vacillator. I think about how I feel. I think about everything that's going on around me, how it affects them, how it affects me. But then the other part is a pleaser, right? So, I care a lot about what other people think or how I may make you feel, right? And in that, I've had to learn to not care as much as I do in certain cases, and I love what you just said, because it's the absolute truth. It's a ever evolving scenario for us as individuals, and to give ourselves permission to be able to, not care about what everybody else is saying you should at this particular point in time, and care about Kayla or care about Tyrell.
Right. And I think that's huge in our society too, is people pleasing. Like you said, I think too many people can relate. And honestly, there's so many people that I don't care what people think, but their actions show otherwise. You clearly care, so it's always, you have that shoulder, the person on your shoulder that's like, you're going to be mean, or these people are going to be upset, or you're going to be framed as this bad person. But in reality, you actually start to draw more people to yourself when you are not focused on everybody else. So it has the opposite effect of what we often think it does.
I like it. Let me see. This question is always one of my favorite questions, and then I'm coming back to politics with you as well. Thinking about success. I think everyone has their own definition of success, Kayla, but for you, how would you define success?
It's so funny because, disclaimer, I got these questions beforehand. And I didn't really shed too much light on this one. Success. I think success, I don't think there's an, I don't think there's an end to success. I don't think, at this point, I have this amount of money in my bank account, I'm successful, or I have this job, I'm successful. I think success is an evolutionary thing, and it changes as you go. So personally, I think if you're knocking out your own personal goals, you're successful. It doesn't matter, where that compares to someone else or what your personal goals are, but as long as you're, small progress, small steps, and you're feeling content and at peace. And that's not to say that things in your life are not gonna, turn left. There's always gonna be roller coasters. That's just life. But I think if at that moment I'm feeling, for instance, right now I'm feeling great. I have a good job. Um, I'm comfortable. I'm successful. But next year, this is not going to be successful for me.
Mm.
I'm going to want something else. Humans evolve every 7 years. So that success is it's not going to be the same. So I don't know if I want to put success in a box of a definition.
Okay.
But I would say, as long as you feel good and you're happy, you're successful.
Okay. Listen, she said, and stick with it. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Yeah, I like that. One, you're not putting it in a box because it changes. The follow up to that question was, and I think you answered already, so I'm not asking the follow up. But the follow up to the question was, has your definition of success changed over the years? And it definitely sounds like it has, and it should, because what we're aiming for in our 20s is not going to be the same thing we're aiming for in our 30s and our 40s as if we're in our teens. You know what I mean? But teenage years. So it should change. Yeah.
And I think it does. I think it changes in the way of, it gets more depth as you go. So like you said, age definitely plays a part in it, your environment, your circumstances. So, when I was a teenager, just graduating would have been success. Getting my first car was success. Now, I've gotten the job, I've gotten the house, I've gotten all of that. That's success. But now it's more depth to that. It's spiritual success. It's physical. It's so much more. Yeah, I would describe my measurement of success right now in this point as just peace, just general peace.
Okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
And purpose.
And purpose. Sticking with success. I'm coming back to politics. Would you consider the fact that we were able to, I should say, Democrats were able to maintain the Senate? Would you consider that to be a success? Don't worry, there's several follow-ups to this, so just letting you know.
Is this you're talking nationally?
Nationally.
Okay, nationally. So my thing is yeah, any success, we got the Senate, that's great. I'm not gonna knock that. I'm not gonna say that's not good enough. I mean, I am gonna say that's not good enough, but I'm not gonna say that that's it. Last time I checked, I'm pretty sure Republicans either have already won the House. Last time I checked, I kind of just stopped checking it. But I think we got bigger problems nationally than we do locally. We got a lot bigger problems. Okay. So yeah, I think it's great that we won the Senate, but okay. I'm worried for 2024.
Okay. Here's the follow-up to it.
I felt it. That's why I was like, all right, let me.
I'm glad you just broke it down, a national versus local or state level politics, because I think it's huge. I think most times people only come out and don't even show up in big numbers for midterms, right? But and may just come every 4 years for me choosing the president and stuff like that. But there's another level of politics, which is local politics, state level politics, which you're a part of, which I think if I'm being honest,
say it.
I can't stand politics, right? But I understand how important it is. Mm-hmm. So the younger Tyrell would just say, I can't stand it, right? But it wouldn't have its full context. I understand its purpose, I understand its utility, and I understand its power, right? But how do you get people involved in politics, and how do you keep them positive while they're in politics is my question.
I think that's the problem. I think people, and it's getting worse. I mean, I can't say it's completely getting worse because, the younger crowd is coming out more and more and more. But we need Black people to vote. They're not voting. I think the problem is they're not seeing any rewards. They're not seeing any, you vote for this person, but what is it doing for you?
Yes.
And that's just the reality of politics. And that's why people hate politics, because, they just see headlines and nothing in the headlines is showing them what they're actually doing. And I think that's the problem that people don't understand. Personally, I think that there needs to be a law that teaches politics in school, in elementary school, going up, because that's the problem, is people don't know how it works. So they elect someone and they think that their problems are going to change, but they don't realize the complex processes that it takes. You get taught the 3 branches of government, but you don't really know how those 3 branches of government actually interact with each other unless you get a college degree in it. And it shouldn't take a college degree to know what you're right, and then a lot of people chalk it up to, well, it's your citizen, you're a citizen, it's your duty to educate yourself. Absolutely not, because not a lot of people have that opportunity or have that time. Like, no. I will be honest, and I hope that it doesn't lower my followers, but this was my first time voting in this election. And the reason for that is not because I'm over here just not caring. I know the power of the vote. I know all of that. But my thing was, for one, I feel like the reason why I didn't is because I'm such a strong believer on know who you're voting for. Know who you're voting for. I cannot stand party ID bullshit. I can't stand, I'm a Democrat, so I'm gonna only vote for Democrat. I'm Republican, I'm only gonna vote. Like, I wish personally that the ballot had policies and not names. That's what I wish it had. So I think after Trump and after realizing what was kind of at stake and being so scared this election, I was like, all right, it's time now. Now, now it's time to get out. But yeah, I think people just, I wish I had the answer to how to get people out to vote. It's all going to be the same thing. Knock on doors, educate, awareness. Unfortunately for me, sometimes I fear that it's going to get so bad and then people will start to vote. That's what I worry about, is I don't want it to get bad. I think the only way to get people to vote really is to start teaching them politics from a young age. I think that's the only thing, because people don't like to bother with it. I think that there needs to be easier ways to vote. I shouldn't have to get in my car. It's just,
people don't know how it works.
No, they
People
don't
know. I'm still learning how it works. And, I consider myself to be a pretty smart, and I don't know how it works, but, I'm always open to hearing or to figuring it out. And I also think that for people who are not in politics, we have to learn how to give grace to those who are, because I think a lot of times we think that just because a person has this title or position, that they're going to be able to come in and with a magic wand and one, swing of it all, be able to change everything. But when you realize how the system is structured, and it takes so long to get one thing passed, it takes so long to get, one thing pushed, and it's a process. And I think that, because most of us don't understand that process of politics, that can also leave a distaste for politics over most of us.
I think, yeah, definitely. They don't.
But it should be taught in school. You said that. I'm going back.
It has to be taught in school. It has to be because of that exact reason. You don't know these things. I mean, one thing that I struggle with and get very irritated with is people only show up for these national things. Okay, you've got a president who's from Texas, has never stepped foot in Albany County, has never stepped foot in the capital region. They don't care. You know, they just need your vote. And you are gung-ho and on Facebook and election day parties. But do you know who your senator is? Do you know what district you live in? Do you know your assembly member? I think even with local things, we're stuck on the governor. And then you look at the ballot and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna mark Democrat. I don't know who these people are, but all I know is I want Hochul or I want Zeldin. And people don't realize, in my opinion, yes, New York State governor has a lot of power. One of our governor has one of the highest, like most power in the country as far as governors go, because of certain powers that we have in our constitution that are given to the governor. But people don't realize that your legislator, your senator, your assembly member, these are the people making these bills. These are the people voting on these bills. She signs it, great. She's got some power. She's got a lot of power. But these people are equally, if not sometimes more important than the governor, but people don't know. And I think that if people started to pay attention to that and started to vote accordingly, they'd be real surprised at how much progress and how easier those processes become, because now you have people sitting in those seats that are all on the same page, that are not, you know, we're just voting whoever. We're voting for, oh, well, this person's been the senator for the past 8 years. I'm not going to bother. Let him stay. And there are, and honestly, they're local. They're sitting in your back. They live in your district with you. By law, they have to live there if they're running. You go to these people's house and knock on their door, but you're worried about the president. You know, and that's not to say that nationally these policies don't affect you. They affect many people, as well as individuals, myself, yourself. But I wish we would get out more locally. Yeah, I agree. And it all comes down to education, really.
Education, think about it, you know, talking about politics. I'm also going to throw another one in education, financial literacy, you know, just realizing those things that could really benefit us in life that our educational systems don't focus in as much on, like, how do you use this in practical day-to-day life? You know, politics is all around us all day, every day. We need to know that. Finances, budgeting is all around us all day, every day. We need to learn that. We need that as early as possible. And the emphasis on those two things in particular, you know, should definitely be weighted a lot higher than where they are.
Definitely. And I think that goes back to our original conversation about crime. These little things could really change a lot of things. Financial literacy that can help, you know, generations worth of poverty. And then education, as far as, you know, political participation is huge if you want to see a change. The problem is you're not using it the right way, so you're not going to see change. And it's this cycle of, I hate my government, I hate this, they're just politicians, they're just lying. They have to win elections. So they can lie all they want, but if you're not putting them in their seat, they can't do anything.
Facts.
So, and that's that power, you know, that we had spoken about earlier of you don't have money, but you're 18 and you're eligible to vote and you can make educated, you know, decisions. So if you're going to vote for somebody, just do your due diligence, please.
Okay. Yep. So you mean to tell me it's not okay to just have an across the board, I'm voting for everyone Black mentality? Because I literally got into that in my household not too long ago, and I'm just like, listen, I think that there's such a huge fallacy in that thought process by itself. Luckily for me, like I said, you know, my views are not just limited to one particular race. I'm Black. I love Black people. I understand Black struggle, but I also know that we're one part of a larger part of things. And the word synergy comes to mind. The sum of the whole is greater than any of the individual parts, but each individual part has a part to play in the sum of the whole, but
yeah, absolutely. No, I do not think that you should vote for somebody just because they're Black. But I do believe that
Issa Rae made it. Issa Rae made it a statement. She said, "I'm voting for everybody. I'm rooting for everybody Black." I think it was Issa Rae. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of one name that's popping up, but I'm not trying to start no controversies on this page, so I'm not even gonna think about it or say it. But I do believe though that race, you could find it in every problem. Every single, and that's why I made it. I mean, my major was my concentration was inequality and equality. And at the core of that is racial justice. So for me, will I vote for someone just because they're Black? No, but I will vote for someone just because of their stance on racial justice and how to pursue racial justice. And that reasoning is because every single problem, I don't care who disagrees with me, but every problem you could trace back to racism. This country was built on racism. And that spread to states as well. I mean, we live in progressive New York, but a lot of the, poverty, all of these problems, who suffers the most? Black people. So if you're working at dismantling racism first, you are going to dismantle a whole lot of other things that a lot of people are complaining about. I can talk about classism, and a poor white person's going to say, well, I deal with that same thing. Well, if we handle it with just race in mind, you'll be handled too.
Yeah.
But in reality, a lot of it's you look at all the statistics, you look at, who's the poorest, who's the most unemployed, who's the one in jails, and it's the Black community. So yeah, I personally, that's one of the biggest reasons why I went out and voted this year, because I felt Zeldin had a real chance. And I mean, anyone who's trying to bring back stop and frisk is a problem to me. And I felt you can't go backwards. We're barely even making steps forward. So we can't afford, to go backwards. But a white person can do that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you voted. I made it a point in my life. I said, God willing, I will never miss another opportunity to vote.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we definitely, there's too much. I think too, it's like I said, I think there wasn't as much at stake in past voting years. Not enough for me to feel like I have to do this. I knew the importance of it, but I didn't feel the urgency of it. So this year, well, more so Trump year, there's a real urgency and there's a real problem. And if people don't see that, we have a big problem.
I agree.
So yeah.
I agree. I got two more questions for you, Miss Kayla, and I'm gonna let you go. I know you are a busy woman. My second to last question is, thinking about your life's path and where you are today, what about your life's path are you most proud of?
Doing something that I love. I think, and finding that something that motivates me. I have kids, I have a husband. Obviously, they are my real reason to go, as well as myself. But being able to go to work and feel like I'm doing something, and that I'm on the path to do something even greater, I think that's what I am definitely most excited about. I don't wake up and say, oh, I gotta go to work. I'm excited. I'm ready, I'm checking emails, like what's going on today. So yeah.
I love it. Okay. All right. And on a lighter note, this was my favorite question from season 1, and now I'm in season 3, and it's still my favorite question. And you are a Capital District baby, so I'm not gonna limit you to one particular area, but what is your favorite place to visit in the Capital District area, and why?
My favorite place to visit. Where do I go all the time? I think Albany. Honestly, all of Albany. And that sounds weird to say, but I stayed in Albany for a couple of years, and I always tell people I am in love with the culture of Albany. I'm in love with the people, even the ugliness of it. It makes it what it is. Since I've started working at the Capitol, I've seen more of Albany on foot because I take these daily walks and I try to explore these different places, and there's always something new and something, it's just vibrant to me. That sounds weird to just say, like, to put a city. I wouldn't say there's a specific.
No, I'm taking it. I'm taking it. I'm receiving it.
But I don't know. I fell in love with Albany when I moved, or when I lived there. Unfortunately, I did have to move, and I was not happy about it. I always said I would end up back. Unfortunately, I don't live there now, but I work there, so that counts. No, yeah, I love it. I think the architecture is beautiful. I think everything about it is great. I love it.
Okay. Well, listen, first things first, Ms. Kayla, thank you for agreeing to be on with us on the Black community. Thank you for giving us an education to who you are. Thank you for telling us about the importance of politics and the fact that it's important to vote, and you got out and voted.
I feel like I'm going to be judged for that one.
Listen. I'm just saying. I think after
I was being honest.
And this is, what is it? This is a no judgment zone. I'm just talking doodle.
That doesn't mean the followers aren't going to be judging.
I really want to say, please continue to stay passionate about your work. Being able to get up every day and be thankful that you're making a positive contribution is huge. It's something I think that some of us take for granted, but being able to do something that you're passionate about and you enjoy and you're helping, I think that's makes you one of the most powerful people.
Thank you.
So I wish you success as you move forward. I wish you success as you embark on some of those other endeavors that I'm sure we're going to see you get involved with. I wish you success with your marriage, with the kids, and I can't wait to get your story out to the Black community because your followers are waiting.
Thank you for having me, Terrell, and you keep doing what you're doing because this is just as important.
Got you covered. I will do my best. Well, thank you again for being on the Black community, and I'll play catch up with you later.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Keep climbing up the ladder. A Black Lives Matter. It matter. So all you young people, give me all. 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 Matter. A Black Lives Matter. They matter. A Black Lives Matter.